Welcome to the first show of the Global Observatory. Over the next days, as we follow the very intricate and very complex negotiations on climate change that will be taking place here in Copenhagen, Denmark, we will be coming to you with shows like this with key personalities that are involved either in the negotiations or that know a tremendous amount about what the issues are at stake, to put in common language, in language that you and I can understand, the very complex and difficult negotiating process between nations, with the hope, of course, of achieving a high-quality agreement on climate change. With me this morning, I have Aimée Christensen, our colleague in the Global Observatory. We have been working on this with a group of volunteers from around the world for many months now. And we also have Frederik Hauge, the founder and executive director of the Bellona Foundation, one of the world-recognized environmental foundations with a tremendous track record, very active in the context of these negotiations, having organized more than 64 side events over the next 2 weeks here in Copenhagen. Behind us, you see the Congress Center, which is where the action is going to be taking place. That's where the negotiators, the NGOs, the business people, the politicians, the heads of state will be convening over the next 2 weeks to come up with the type of agreement that we're all hoping for. An agreement that mitigates climate change, helps us adapt to its consequences, and therefore allows the world to move on towards a much better world than we even have today. Frederik, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Let me thank you for your leadership of so many years. You're not new to the field. You have been working on this for how many years now?
Close to 25 years.
Close to 25 years. What are your expectations?
I'm a little bit mixed in my feelings, but I think we could already now conclude that these negotiations will be very important, but not the end of the climate negotiations. I think we need to look at this as a big building that's needed to be built, and I hope that we'll get some really good building stones to continue this work. So it's complicated, but still I'm filled with optimism, and we have no other choice than succeed.
Absolutely. So how are you all involved with the negotiations? You have 64 side events in your Bellona room. Talk to us about the theme. It's 101 solutions. Why in the Bellona Foundation's work on climate change, why 101 solutions?
I think that our approach to combat global warming is divided to two. We have to help the UN negotiation track, and at the same time we need a coalition of willing of industry and business that leads the way. And through the negotiations at Bellona Center, it's a need for getting different stakeholders to talk to each other between different organizations and to try to find different solutions on different issues. And at our Bellona room in the Bellona Center, we will try to facilitate this, and we are very proud of the program we have there. At the same time, we have a huge event where Bellona is arranging together with the municipality of Copenhagen, the Copenhagen Live, where we're going to show the solutions from the industry and business that we have worked together with a lot of interesting stuff.
And that's out at the town square where you have your own setup there showcasing the solutions. And I know you have an incredible technology table that allows people to learn about the different issues of climate change.
Yeah, both at the Copenhagen Live at the City Square and in the Bellona Center we have cutting edge technology with an interactive computer table that's really cool, both for learning more but also to really make the scenarios and modeling different issues.
Frederik, you talked about technology and you talked about the business sector. Now, the technologies that we're talking about that can help us mitigate climate change, are these technologies that are already available today, or are you talking about technologies that we would have to invest a tremendous amount of resources and be getting in the future? And secondly, why is it so important that the business sector is a part of this agreement?
I think to start our answer the last question, the business is a part of the problem as the consumption. But without turning this into a green economy, we will not succeed. We need their capital, their money, and their knowledge to create the new solutions. When it comes to why show these 101 solutions, it's important that the political leaders and the heads of states knows that there is a lot of possibilities, and we have summed this up in 101 solutions. Most of them we could implement just now. It's a question about price. Some of them needs to be invented further on, and we will also present some new, quite fantastic technologies during these coming weeks.
So if we were to implement the technologies that we already have today, how much do you think we could bring down carbon emissions in the world?
I think that's a question about strategy, and still we don't know what kind of prices some of this technology will have when we really start to deploy them large scale. And that's one of the things that we are focusing on, is that we need incentives for the early movers, the risk takers that goes ahead. And then we need to be better in looking at what does this really cost when we deploy this large scale. For example, concentrated solar power is really, really expensive to build now. But if you build really many of them, they will go down in price. And you could also create synergies. And we need to focus on this to show the politicians it's possible to do.
And so in the Bellona space, you're going to be having a number of discussions around the technology pathways, how we can set up the right financing structures, how the governments can step forward with their money, but also leverage new private money to come forward. And I know that's a critical piece of these negotiations, is how do we move this technology that's ready now out into the marketplace in the developing countries, in the rapidly emerging economies like China and India. And so a lot of your panels are going to be discussing these issues about how do we structure that financing and the technology deployment.
Yes, and our role is of course to facilitate this, but I think we have got a really good and wide approach from different participants. I think also from Bellona's point of view, we will focus very much on what we call the carbon negative value chain, because we think that we need to prepare pathways to combat global warming. We have 4 billion people globally, needs more income and a job, and to present new ways to produce biomass and fresh water will be a very substantial part of this. And if we have enough biomass that is sustainably produced, we could combine that with carbon capture and storage and go carbon negative.
So what you're talking about is actually the fact that we can continue to create development and opportunities of well-being for people around the world, and at the same time do so in a new way with the technologies that you have mentioned, where we lower carbon emissions. Is that correct?
Absolutely, and I think one of the solutions we present, called the Sahara Forest Project, shows how we can use CO2, sunlight and salt water to produce biomass for food, feed and energy, and at the same time produce fresh water. The big issue is that then the rich countries need to buy the energy from the developing countries instead of selling their black oil as Norway do.
So tell us a little bit more about the Sahara Forest Project.
It's a project where Bellona is very proud to be partnered together with 3 other partners. It's a technology based on a seawater greenhouse where we pump in seawater and evaporate it to condensate fresh water. And at the same time, as we create very good conditions with no need for pesticides because the air is cleaned inside this cool greenhouse, we get humidity that could restore a lot of areas. And what we see is that it's a very efficient way to bind carbon and create jobs and fresh water and food in developing countries.
So, Frederik, we have a couple of minutes left. We've done a great amount of sharing here with respect to the technologies, what we can do, the business should be involved. Let's take a step back. What is going to happen in here in the Bella Center? What do you think is going to happen over the next 2 weeks?
That's the big question, isn't it? I think the first week will be very much focused on the negotiation, and I think we will be quite frustrated next week. And then I hope the politicians come in and take their leadership and fix this up. We will not end the fight towards global warming here, but hopefully we get an agreement that during the next year could be legally binding.
Great. Friends, thank you so much. A message of optimism and a message of hope. Yes, the way forward is a complex one. After all, we have never done this before. But as you have heard from Frederik, there is a way forward, there is a way out. Thank you so much for joining us on the Global Observatory.